During a Black Ops mission, we found something that shouldn't exist. The biting wind howled like a banshee, tearing at our exposed skin as we navigated the treacherous, snow-covered peaks of the Ural Mountains. Our breath plumed out in ragged clouds, instantly freezing in the sub-zero air. Every muscle screamed in protest, a symphony of aches and burns amplified by the sheer brutality of the environment. We were Ghost Team, a Black Ops unit specializing in the kind of missions the government didn't want to acknowledge. We were the shadows, the deniable assets, the ghosts in a machine designed for plausible deniability. Our objective: infiltrate a remote, abandoned Soviet research facility rumored to have been conducting experiments that even the Kremlin wanted buried. The intel was sketchy, whispers of genetic manipulation, psychic warfare, and things far stranger, things that defied the known laws of physics and biology. Sergeant Major Grim Walker, a man carved from granite and tempered in the fires of countless conflicts, led us. Beside him, Ramirez, our demolitions expert, a wisecracking Texan with a penchant for explosives and a surprising knowledge of obscure folklore. Then there was me, Reyes, the team's point man and linguist, fluent in Russian and several other dead languages, a skill that had proven unnervingly useful in the past. And finally, Daniels, our medic and tech specialist, a quiet, unassuming genius who could patch up a gunshot wound as easily as he could hack into a nuclear launch system. The trek to the facility was a grueling test of endurance. The terrain was unforgiving, a labyrinth of icy crevasses and treacherous slopes. The wind howled incessantly, a constant reminder of our vulnerability. We moved with the practiced efficiency of seasoned professionals, communicating through hand signals and hushed whispers, our senses heightened, constantly scanning for any sign of danger. After what felt like an eternity, we reached the facility. It was a monolithic structure of reinforced concrete, half buried in the snow, its stark, angular lines a testament to Soviet-era brutalist architecture. The place exuded an aura of decay and abandonment, a palpable sense of wrongness that prickled at the back of my neck. Grim gave the signal, and we moved into position around the perimeter, weapons drawn, ready for anything. Ramirez planted breaching charges on the main entrance, and with a deafening roar, the heavy steel doors buckled and swung inward, revealing a dark, cavernous interior. The air inside was thick with the stench of mildew and decay, a musty odor that clung to the back of the throat. We moved cautiously through the facility, our flashlights cutting through the oppressive darkness. The place was a labyrinth of corridors and chambers, each one more unsettling than the last. We found abandoned laboratories filled with shattered equipment and corroded test tubes. We saw operating rooms with blood-stained tables and rusted surgical instruments. We discovered holding cells, their thick steel bars twisted and broken as if something incredibly powerful had tried to escape. The further we delved into the facility, the more disturbing things became. We found documents written in a strange, indecipherable code. We saw murals depicting grotesque figures and nightmarish landscapes. We encountered evidence of experiments that defied all ethical and scientific boundaries, things that made even Grim, a man who had seen the worst of humanity, visibly blanch. In one chamber, we found a series of cryogenic chambers, their doors ripped open, frost clinging to the walls. Inside, we saw what remained of the subjects, grotesque, mutated forms, their bodies twisted into unnatural shapes, their faces frozen in expressions of eternal agony. It was a horrifying sight, a glimpse into the depths of human depravity. As we continued our exploration, we began to hear strange noises emanating from the depths of the facility. Faint, guttural growls accompanied by the scraping of metal and the echo of footsteps. We tightened our grip on our weapons, our senses on high alert. We were no longer alone. We eventually reached the facility's central chamber, a vast, cathedral-like space that seemed to hum with an unnatural energy. In the center of the chamber, we saw it. A massive, pulsating orb of organic matter suspended in midair by a network of cables and wires. The orb was a grotesque tapestry of flesh, bone, and metal, constantly shifting and changing as if it were alive. It was an abomination, a violation of everything we knew about biology and physics. As we stared in horrified fascination, the orb began to emit a low, throbbing hum that resonated deep within our skulls. The air around us crackled with energy, and the temperature in the chamber plummeted. We knew instinctively that we had stumbled upon something that should not exist. Suddenly, the orb began to pulse more rapidly, its surface rippling with grotesque shapes. The cables holding it in place strained and snapped, sending sparks flying. The orb dropped to the floor with a sickening thud, and the chamber was plunged into darkness. Then, a voice that seemed to emanate from the very walls of the chamber, a voice that was both terrifying and seductive, a voice that spoke directly to our minds. "You have found me," the voice whispered. "You have awakened me." We raised our weapons, our hearts pounding in our chests. We couldn't see anything in the darkness, but we knew that whatever was speaking to us was incredibly powerful and incredibly dangerous. "Who are you?" Grim demanded, his voice barely above a whisper. "What are you?" The voice chuckled, a chilling sound that echoed through the chamber. "I am that which was and that which will be," it said. "I am the beginning and the end. I am the forbidden knowledge, the key to unlocking the secrets of the universe." The voice paused and then continued, its tone becoming more urgent. "But I am also trapped, bound by forces beyond my control. You can help me. You can free me." We exchanged nervous glances. This was clearly a trap. Whatever this thing was, it wanted something from us, and we knew that whatever it was, it wouldn't be good. "We're not going to help you," Grim said, his voice firm. "We're here to shut you down." The voice laughed again, a mocking, derisive sound. "You cannot shut me down," it said. "I am beyond your comprehension. I am beyond your control." Suddenly, the lights flickered back on, revealing the orb in all its hideous glory. It was even more grotesque than before, its surface now covered in writhing tentacles and pulsating veins. The orb began to move, slowly at first, and then with increasing speed. It rolled towards us, its tentacles flailing, its veins throbbing. We opened fire, our bullets tearing into the orb's flesh. But it was no use. The bullets seemed to have no effect. The orb continued to advance, its relentless momentum crushing everything in its path. Panic began to set in. We were outgunned, outmatched, and completely out of our depth. We were facing something that defied all logic and reason, something that we couldn't possibly hope to defeat. As the orb drew closer, I noticed something moving in the shadows behind it. A figure, tall and gaunt, its skin stretched taut over its bones. It was one of the mutated creatures we had seen in the cryogenic chambers, but it was different. It was more intelligent, more deliberate in its movements. The creature raised its hand, and a beam of energy shot forth, striking Daniels in the chest. Daniels screamed and collapsed to the ground, his body convulsing violently. The creature turned its attention to Ramirez, who was firing wildly at the orb. It moved with incredible speed, closing the distance between them in a heartbeat. It grabbed Ramirez by the throat, its grip like iron. Ramirez struggled, but it was no use. The creature lifted him into the air, its fingers digging into his flesh. With a sickening crack, Ramirez's neck snapped and his body went limp. Grim and I continued to fire at the orb, but it was no use. It was too powerful, too resilient. The creature turned its attention to Grim. Grim stood his ground, his face a mask of grim determination. He raised his weapon and fired a single shot, hitting the creature directly in the head. The creature staggered back, but it didn't fall. It reached up and touched the wound, its fingers coming away covered in blood. It stared at Grim with malevolent eyes, and then it lunged. Grim fought bravely, but he was no match for the creature's superior strength and speed. The creature overwhelmed him, tearing at his flesh with its razor-sharp claws. Grim roared in pain and defiance, but his struggles were futile. The creature ripped his throat out and he collapsed to the ground, choking on his own blood. I was the only one left. I stood there, paralyzed with fear, watching as the creature approached me. It was no longer moving with the mindless aggression of a wild animal. It was moving with purpose, with intelligence. It stopped in front of me, its eyes burning into my soul. "You cannot escape me," it said, its voice a low, guttural growl. "You are mine now." It reached out and touched my forehead, and a surge of energy coursed through my body. My vision blurred, and I felt my mind being invaded, my thoughts being probed. I tried to resist, but it was no use. The creature was too powerful. It delved into my memories, searching for something that I didn't understand. And then it found it. The knowledge of the ancient languages, the secrets of the forgotten texts, the keys to unlocking forbidden knowledge. The creature smiled, a chilling, predatory grin. "Thank you," it said. You have given me what I need." It released me and I stumbled backwards, gasping for air. The creature turned its attention to the orb, which was still pulsating and throbbing. It raised its hands and began to chant in a language that I didn't recognize, but somehow understood. The orb began to glow brighter, its energy intensifying. The creature continued to chant, its voice growing louder and more powerful. The chamber began to shake and cracks appeared in the walls. The air crackled with energy and the temperature soared. I knew that something terrible was about to happen. I had to escape. I turned and ran, fleeing through the labyrinthine corridors of the facility. I could hear the creatures chanting echoing behind me, growing louder and more intense. I could feel the orb's energy building, threatening to consume everything in its path. I ran as fast as I could, my lungs burning, my legs aching. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew that I had to get out of there. I eventually reached the main entrance of the facility, the doors still hanging open from the breaching charges. I stumbled outside into the blinding snow. The wind howled around me, carrying the creatures chanting on its icy breath. I knew that it was only a matter of time before it found me. I had to get away, as far away as possible. I began to run, pushing myself to my limits, ignoring the pain and the exhaustion. I ran through the snow-covered mountains, my only goal to escape the horror that I had witnessed. I ran until I collapsed, my body completely spent. I lay there in the snow, gasping for air, my mind racing. I had seen something that shouldn't exist, something that had the power to destroy the world, and I was the only one who knew about it. I knew that I couldn't stay there. I had to warn someone, had to tell them what I had seen. But who would believe me? They would think I was crazy, that I had imagined everything. But I knew it was real. I had seen it with my own eyes. I had felt it with my own soul. I eventually managed to gather my strength and continue running. I ran for days, enduring the harsh conditions, driven by the fear of what I had seen. I finally reached a small village where I was able to find help. I told them my story, but they didn't believe me. They thought I was delirious, suffering from hypothermia. They gave me food and shelter, but they didn't take me seriously. I knew that I had to get to someone who would believe me, someone who had the power to stop what was happening. I made my way to the nearest city where I contacted my superiors. I told them everything about the facility, about the experiments, about the orb, about the creature. They listened to my story, but I could see the skepticism in their eyes. They told me that they would investigate, but I knew that they wouldn't find anything. The facility was gone, erased from the face of the earth. The orb was gone, its power unleashed. The creature was gone, free to roam the world. I was alone, haunted by the memories of what I had seen. I knew that I couldn't let it go. I had to do something, had to find a way to stop the creature and prevent it from unleashing its power on the world. I began to research, delving into ancient texts, searching for clues, for anything that could help me understand what I had encountered. I spent years studying the occult, the paranormal, the forbidden knowledge that had been hidden from the world for centuries. I learned about ancient rituals, about forgotten gods, about the power of the human mind. I discovered that the orb was not just a random anomaly. It was a conduit, a gateway to another dimension, a place where unimaginable horrors dwelled. The creature was not just a mutated human. It was a guardian, a protector of the gateway, a being of immense power that had been tasked with preventing anyone from accessing the forbidden knowledge. I realized that the only way to stop the creature was to close the gateway, to sever the connection between our world and the other dimension. But to do that, I would need to confront the creature, to face it in battle. And I knew that I couldn't do it alone. I began to search for others, people who had experienced similar things, people who understood the dangers that lurked in the shadows. I found a small group of individuals, each with their own unique skills and abilities. There was a psychic who could communicate with the dead, a mage who could manipulate energy, and a warrior who had dedicated his life to fighting the forces of darkness. Together, we formed a team, a group of unlikely heroes who were determined to stop the creature and save the world. We tracked the creature across the globe, following its trail of destruction and despair. We learned that it was searching for something that would amplify its power and allow it to open the gateway completely. We knew that we had to stop it before it was too late. We finally confronted the creature in an ancient temple hidden deep within the Amazon rainforest. The temple was a place of immense power, a place where the veil between worlds was thin. The creature was waiting for us, surrounded by its minions, a horde of mutated creatures that had been twisted and corrupted by its influence. The battle was fierce and brutal. We fought with all our might, using our skills and abilities to their full potential. The psychic read the minds of the creatures, predicting their attacks and disrupting their formations. The mage unleashed blasts of energy, incinerating the minions and weakening the creature. The warrior fought with unmatched ferocity, cutting through the creatures with his enchanted blade. I used my knowledge of ancient languages to disrupt the creature's spells and weaken its defenses. But the creature was too powerful. It shrugged off our attacks and retaliated with devastating force. The psychic was overwhelmed by the creature's mental power, her mind shattered and her body convulsing. The mage was struck by a blast of energy, his body burned to a crisp. The warrior was impaled by the creature's claws, his lifeblood draining away. I was the only one left. I stood there, facing the creature, my heart pounding in my chest. I knew that I was outmatched, that I couldn't possibly defeat it. But I couldn't give up. I had to try. I had to protect the world from this evil. I closed my eyes and focused my mind, channeling all my energy into a single, desperate attack. I spoke the words of an ancient incantation, a spell that I had learned from a forgotten text, a spell that had the power to banish the creature back to its own dimension. The words resonated through the temple, their power shaking the very foundations of the building. The creature recoiled in pain, its body writhing and contorting. But it was too strong. It resisted the spell, its will unwavering. It lunged at me, its claws outstretched, its eyes burning with hatred. I braced myself for the impact, knowing that this was the end. But then something unexpected happened. The spirits of my fallen comrades appeared, their forms shimmering with ethereal light. They stood between me and the creature, protecting me from its attack. They joined their energy together, creating a shield of pure light that repelled the creature. The creature roared in frustration, its power unable to penetrate the shield. The spirits continued to chant, their voices growing louder and more powerful. The spell began to take effect, weakening the creature and tearing it apart. The creature screamed in agony, its body dissolving into nothingness. The gateway began to close, the connection between our world and the other dimension severed. The temple began to crumble, its ancient stones collapsing around us. The spirits faded away, their task completed. I was left standing alone amidst the ruins of the temple, the only survivor of the battle. I had won, but the victory came at a great cost. I had lost my friends, my comrades, my family. I had seen things that no one should ever see. I had faced a horror that had threatened to consume the world, but I had survived, and I had learned a valuable lesson. The world is a dangerous place, filled with things that we don't understand. There are forces at work that are beyond our control. But we can't give up. We can't succumb to fear. We have to fight for what we believe in, even when the odds are stacked against us. We have to protect the world from the darkness, even if it means sacrificing everything. I left the temple and returned to the world, a changed man. I was no longer the same person who had entered the facility in the Ural Mountains. I had seen the face of evil and I had survived. I knew that my work was not done. There were still dangers lurking in the shadows, threats waiting to emerge from the darkness. I had to be ready. I had to be vigilant. I had to protect the world from the things that shouldn't exist. I dedicated my life to that purpose, becoming a guardian, a protector, a warrior against the forces of darkness. I joined a secret organization, a group of individuals who shared my knowledge and my commitment. We traveled the world, investigating paranormal phenomena, fighting supernatural threats, and protecting humanity from the unknown. We were the last line of defense, the shield that stood between the world and the abyss. We were the ones who knew the truth, the ones who had seen the things that shouldn't exist. And we were ready to fight, to protect, to sacrifice ourselves for the sake of humanity. The war against the darkness never ends. It is a constant struggle, a never-ending battle. But we will not give up. We will not surrender. We will continue to fight until the darkness is vanquished, until the world is safe. Because we are the guardians. We are the protectors. We are the ones who stand between the world and the things that shouldn't exist. And we will not fail.